So we'll bring this council meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we'll proceed with roll call. Councilor Albert?
Here.
Councilor Colby?
Here.
Councilor Ward?
Here.
Councilor Crafts?
Here.
And Councilor Brunel?
Here.
All right, and Councilor Lunt and Crawford are in the audience. The next item on our agenda tonight is the inauguration of elected officials. So thank you all for joining us here tonight for the Lisbon Town Council's 11th organizational meeting, which is held on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in December. There are no outgoing remarks at this time, since Councilor Bickford gave his remarks during the council's previous meeting. There were 4,946 ballots cast on November 8, resulting in the following candidates being elected into office. For Council at Large, Chris Brunel won with 2,109 votes. For Council District 1, Mark Lunt with 858 votes. Council District 2, Chris Crawford with 1,164 votes. For School Committee members, Paula Jeffries won with 2,221 votes, and Tracy Austin with 3,017. For Water Commissioner, Bill Bauer won with 4,113 votes. Would Councilors Brunel, Lunt, and Crawford please join me at the lectern to be sworn in? Please raise your right hand, and please repeat after me. I. Please state your name. Do solemnly swear. That I will support. The Constitution. And will obey the laws. Of the United States. And of the state of Maine. That I will. In all respects. Observe the provisions of the Charter and ordinances of the Town of Lisbon, and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Town Council. Congratulations, gentlemen. Please sign the certificates at the lectern. Okay. Take your seat right up front.
Excuse me. Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard again.
Would the school committee members, Paula Jeffries and Tracy Austin, please come forward to be sworn in? Okay, please raise your hand, your right hand, and repeat after me. I. Please state your name. Do solemnly swear. That I will support. The Constitution. And will obey the laws. Of the United States. And of the state of Maine. That I will. In all respects. Observe the provisions. Of the Charter. And ordinances of the Town of Lisbon, and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of School Committee. Congratulations. don't believe Bill Bauer is here, so we'll catch him later. The next order of business is Order 2016-258, the election of council chairman. Are there any nominations? The floor is open.
I'd like to nominate Alan Ward for council chair.
I'll second it.
Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, with only one nomination, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? And the motion carries.
She didn't put her hand up right. I was just making a blind joke.
Okay. So, that's 6-0. Did you abstain? Oh, right.
Hey,
Put his hand up.
Now.
So we have Councillor Ward for chair this year. Would you like me to continue, Councillor Ward, with the election of the
Oh, yes,
vice
absolutely.
chair? All right. Next item is Order 2016-259, the election of council vice chairman. Nominations are open.
Chris Burnell.
Are there any other nominations? Seeing that there is only one nomination, all those in favor, please raise your hand. And those opposed? And the motion carries. At this time, I'll pass the gavel to the chairman, and you can rearrange seats if you like.
You gonna move?
Yeah, you have to go
You
sit
don't
down.
really have to move because you are the chair.
Took me a year to get away from her.
And the vice
I
chair,
need to
if
throw
you'd like.
something at him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, though.
We're just gonna egg her on now. She's gonna yell louder.
I just got a better trajectory on you now, so.
Yeah, right. Be like, he'll never see it.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Alan.
Exactly. Thank you, sir.
When they look back on these, it's going to be fun.
All right.
Traditional swapping of nameplates. This is new.
This is new.
She gave us all these for nothing.
Right?
You were prepared.
Next item is good news and recognition.
Good news and recognition. Does anybody have anything tonight? You're up, sir.
Thank you. Fran La Rochelle, Lisbon Falls. Welcome to the council, new members. Thank you very much. I'm sure you will serve well. Just wanted to give some good news that this past weekend, Lisbon has had its very Merry Main Street, and Positive Change put that on as an ongoing event that we do yearly. This year we had over 20 businesses downtown that participated, and it was it seemed strange because it didn't seem real busy, but it was actually one of our busier years. The businesses all seemed to actually have a good inflow of people coming through. I want to thank the council. This year we actually had more support from not just the businesses, but actually the town property down there also. The library was open this year, which we've been kind of encouraging for the last few years, and actually was a great stop for people to go in and have an opportunity to go through. The fire department was very supportive again this year. They actually had the fire burning out front, so it was actually nice. And this year we actually had the Lisbon Police Department gave a great hand to actually do some traffic control for our horse and buggy, which sometimes turns on the 196 on kind of with no lights, so it gets a little scary. But all in all, the event went really well. We just want to thank you for your support, and look forward to it next year. There's actually going to be a couple new businesses down there next year that I think would be exciting to for them to participate. So eventually we just want to have something that everybody goes down to and looks forward to every year, which I think we're getting there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next item, Twyla.
Is the public hearing to establish the establishment of the Lisbon Development Committee. Once the chair opens the public hearing, those in the audience who wish to speak may address the council chair. Please use the lectern and state your name for the record.
I'd open the public hearing. Anybody? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Next item.
Is the renewal special entertainment permits for the Coombs Mountford American Legion Post 158 and Slovak Catholic Association.
I'd open the public hearing. Seeing nobody, we'll close the hearing. Next item, 12.
Audience participation and response for agenda items. At this time, those in the audience who wish to address the council may come forward to address issues or items that are open on the agenda. Please use the microphone at the lectern and state your name for the record.
Anyone? Seeing nobody, moving right along.
The consent agenda. Any counselor wishing to have any item removed may do so now. Seeing none. Order 2016-260 to approve the accounts payable and payroll warrants numbers 66, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, along with the minutes of November 15 and the liquor license and special entertainment permits for the Coombs Mountford American Legion Post 158 and the Slovak Catholic Association.
Before we vote on this, just to let the rest of the council know, anybody that was in the office, there's a gap between number 66 and number 71. Diane is in the process of trying to figure that out so that we do make sure all warrants are approved, just for awareness. Go for it.
A vote? If you're ready,
Yep.
we need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Those opposed, none. Order passed, 7-0.
Next item, Twyla.
Council orders, ordinances, and resolutions. Order 2016-261, an ordinance, medical marijuana, Chapter 70-1 and 70-351. This is a first reading, so a roll call vote is required.
So I'll make a motion so we can get to the discussion portion.
Please, I was going to that.
Again, I'll make that motion.
Need a second for the discussion part.
Are we just having the discussion? Or?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll second it.
Yes.
So now we're in the discussion. Woo.
Now we're in the discussion point. Absolutely. I've had at least one counselor express the fact that with the moving parts from the state still outstanding and a lot of unknowns still with the recount actually in process, that we may be deferring the vote, but I want to have the discussion associated with that. So in that regard, I want to hear the issues to not further delay it, to at least know what we're looking at. So by all means, somebody want to bring us up to speed?
I see Dawn moving, so.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't want to deny you the opportunity. I want to know what the issues are associated, because I'm
Well, I
kinda
remember
confused.
this was postponed until December 6th
Correct.
because
Right.
of the pending election and the recreational marijuana thing. I'm sure that you all know this is not recreational marijuana, this is medical.
Yeah.
But what has changed somewhat since the time that we presented it before, we went to a workshop held by AVCOG recently, and the reasoning behind staying out of this stuff on the town level from the legal aspect has pretty much disappeared. The case in Sanford, I believe, which was whether or not it could be regulated by zone or anything else, was settled, and was settled in favor of the town, and was not appealed within the time frame. So the case is settled law. And so that sets the precedent. Now, there may be some changes to medical marijuana that MMA may do in the future, but I would only say that what is being regulated in here is the location of where medical marijuana facilities for those caregivers who do 2 or more care for 2 or more people. It does not affect anything but where it goes, and in this case it would be regulated to commercial and industrial. It does not regulate private caregivers, nor does it regulate those within the household that are 2, that the state law allows that to happen. So all it does is the larger group. And the planning board, I don't think, has changed our opinion that it's what we're trying to do is reinforce our codes enforcement officer, who has been relegating the medical marijuana, in this case, to commercial and industrial areas. He's told every applicant that that's where it is, and all this does is provide him some evidence. If it hasn't been challenged, I'm saying this publicly, it hasn't been challenged, but I'm sure it may be if something is not done. So that's where we are with it. if there's questions, I can try to answer them, but that's where it is.
Yes, by all means, there'll be some questions, I'm sure. Stay right there, Don.
I'm going to dive in.
Dive
Yeah,
in,
so
please.
for clarity's sake, I'm just going to basically parrot what you just talked about, and correct me if I'm wrong and when I do that. So right now, what Dennis, the code enforcement officer, has been giving for a directive, this basically would just back him on that and state, then that's it, nothing more.
That's it.
Okay, thank you.
So the caregivers who are outside of those zones that have already been operating, is that going to grandfather them, or?
What those that have applied are put in those zones. Those that have not applied are not operating, probably legally anyway. But no, they're not. I don't know if they're going to be grandfathered. But what caregivers are you talking about? Are you
Medical.
talking about 2 to 5? Caring for more than 2 to 5 people?
Caring for more than 2 to 5 patients?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And they're operating.
I'm saying if they're operating outside of the industrial or the commercial, are they going to be grandfathered if they've already been established in doing so?
I can't speak for him, but no, it won't grandfather.
Okay.
Just let me come back to this state statute. I think this is one of the sticky, slippery slopes we talked about earlier on, if my memory serves me, that these folks, because of the confidentiality piece, don't have to come forward, and that was the...
That's been somewhat clarified and it hasn't been written in the law yet, but the intent we're hearing from the lawyers is that it was to protect in licensing, not in, and I'm not that familiar with all of it, but it wasn't intended to extend down to where the person who wants to establish a caregiver operation couldn't be questioned or couldn't be identified because of confidentiality. That was, as we understand it, was not the intent of the law. And quite frankly, those that are applying are not trying to be quiet about it. They're saying who they are.
So there's some transparency there. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
I've spoken with some caregivers from the neighborhood, and just as Cassie has said, that some of them are concerned about the fact because they have had DHS come in, make sure their place is all on the up and up. They got the paperwork on the wall. They got the patients on the wall. Now, they're not in the zones that we're talking about. So, and again, nobody can guarantee that they're going to be grandfathered. So what's going to happen to them? This is what we...
Well,
this is the big concern of what we have in the neighborhood.
from what again, I'm probably not as prepared as I could be to answer all of that legal stuff, but from those that are operating 2 to 5, can't legally operate in a household anyway, unless there are just caring, as it says in the statute here. But if they are caring for more than that, they're not legal to be just everywhere. And
Well, I believe that every person, if they count themselves, can carry and take care of 5 people. So that would actually mean they're taking care of 6 people, which puts them in a different bracket from what you're talking about.
right, and this would regulate that.
That's the slippery slope we talk about. That
Right.
some of us beyond just me up here may be concerned about the people who are out there who are doing it, who we believe are legal, and this is going to snuff
Well,
them. Especially if you have a wife and a husband that are
Exactly.
living under the same roof and have 5 patients each. Now they got 12 patients between themselves and the patients they're caring for. Now, that's again, you're taking some people who've already been established, who already got their
And who are following the state guidelines.
respect, handing in the money and the whole bit. So.
Although
And as
most
I
of
said,
them
we are-
aren't.
Those are people that we're concerned about because
But if
they are
they're-
taxpayers in our neighborhood.
If they're not, then they're not legal, so then therefore they're a violation of state law. But if they are abiding, we're not going to know that. Only the state is going to know that because they're the ones that are
That's- yeah.
controlling it.
Right.
So for me, I'm not inclined to vote for something like this
Neither
until
am I.
we have clear direction.
You may or may not get it this year. I don't know.
My concern here is I obviously want to make sure that we're going to support the code enforcement officer. And so is this something that's dominating his time?
Yes, he gets lots of questions about it. The major concern is not somebody in the neighborhood doing whatever they're doing.
Right.
The concern is coming down to the village area where you have very dense population, putting in a 2 to 5 or whatever, care to 5 people all in one setting, and changing the whole character of potentially downtown.
And you're,
Without any
you're
kind-
referring to the people who were trying to rent out Drapos, correct?
That's one case,
Correct.
but there are others.
That's a case that just pops out in my head.
There are others.
A handful of caregivers that wanted to rent the facility because
Right.
it was a pharmacy and had a
And
safe
that's what this is
barred
about.
windows and all that stuff.
Right.
That's
But
what this
that
is
would
about.
be that would have to be because you can't have a co-op. So according to state law, so they wouldn't be able to get the license anyways.
Yes, they would. Because if
Well-
they can separate the bit, they can separate it and have,
Yeah.
you know,
I see what you're saying.
Section for you, section for you,
Right.
section for you.
yep. And
That's
you don't get to
3.
talk to each other, but you can, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's all inclusive.
It's all legal.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
But if that's the problem. If it's legal, then I don't see how we really.
I understand what he
Because
said.
the state, because of the case, we're allowed now, evidence is that we're allowed to say where that can be. We're not saying we can stop having that. We're saying we can regulate what zone it can be in.
But as
So-
far as the ones that have already been established that are outside of these zones and are following the rules and regulations, I'm not okay with voting on and saying, sorry, you need to shut down.
I get that.
It's not
I get
right.
that. But you're also perhaps creating some big problems for very dense populated areas. Now, I don't know how that's treated in the neighborhoods, and that wasn't the intention. But I'm, you know, you can do what you want, but I'm just saying where we stand on the issue is that he needs to be backed up. We don't need, in our opinion, and in his opinion, to have medical marijuana available in just every section of town that we would like to attract other businesses to. And it does have a detrimental effect. So that's the point. No, nobody wants to tell somebody out in the middle of nowhere that you can't do what you're doing.
But that's what's going to happen.
Exactly.
No, it's not going to happen. Because as it's in,
Ordinance.
it could happen, but will it? No.
That's what I'm saying. Is it's that gray area of it could, but we're not really sure. So until I'm 100% sure of what it's going to do, I can't vote for something like this.
Any other questions?
No, I think it's clear. I think that obviously I can understand where the planning board's coming from. Obviously, we want to back up our code enforcement officer, but and also make sure that what we're trying to do with our development plan, that it would fall in line with that. And I could certainly understand the challenges it would face, because there is, regardless of what your own personal opinions are of it, there is a stigma associated with, and that's, you know, that's the reality of it.
I just would like you to understand that I would expect that he would not enforce anything if you don't go ahead. That I would expect him to say, okay, it's okay.
Free
everywhere.
range, yeah.
And if you want that, go right ahead.
Which is what he's not doing now. He's directing people to industrial
Right.
in those 2 zones.
When they ask for a permit,
Right.
which you know everybody's not doing, when they ask for a permit, that's what he's telling them.
Right. So if we move forward associated with this, on the first reading, we're talking just those 2 zones, industrial and, refresh my memory,
Commercial.
commercial. We're not talking about anything that's
It's really
actually out there
commercial 'cause we don't
currently
have much
now.
industrial.
We're not dealing with anything currently now.
No.
Okay. Any other discussions? Yeah. Yes.
Don, thanks very much.
Miriam Morgan Alexander, Chair of the Board of Appeals. I support thoroughly having this codified, because anytime the code enforcement officer takes an action, it may or may not be subject to an appeal. And we have to have a good, solid direction of where we're going to go if we're going to make a decision. So don't confuse it, whatever you do. Make it clear-cut. This way we've got something to work with.
Thank you. Anybody? Yes.
Hi, my name is Kendra Corsi. I am a resident of 12 years of Lisbon Falls. I am also a nurse of 27 years, and I am the director of a nonprofit called Cannabis Action for Maine People. I have been actively involved in the state legislative actions regarding medical marijuana for the past 10 years. So if anyone knows the laws, that would probably be me, because I'm there every session. I've written laws. I've find sponsors for laws. So I'm very actively involved. I have some concerns about this, and I'd like to speak out just for patients, not necessarily for caregivers. I do have an interest in being a caregiver as well. I have been a caregiver myself off and on over the years. It's not something that I'm as passionate about as I am about education about cannabis and finding support for patient rights and being active in the legislative issues. And some issues that I have as far as patients go is that if you're limiting current businesses that are already occurring right now with people that are following the laws according to the state, and you're limiting the number of patients that they can legally provide for, then what you're doing is two things. One is you're impacting a small business owner here in the state of Lisbon. And as caregivers, we are required to pay state taxes. They do follow up on these issues. And I've worked closely with legislative issues to make sure that the taxes are being paid by caregivers. The second thing that's happening is you're forcing more people into the black market, quite honestly. And if you're only allowing a caregiver in Lisbon that's been operating according to the laws to provide legally for 2 patients, where are all the rest of the patients going to go? We now have almost 100,000 patients in the state of Maine right now. There are over 3,000 registered caregivers in the state. That's a lot of people. Cannabis is stigmatized. Unfortunately, it is. One of my passions is to teach people about how cannabis really works on people's body, how it helps them. It saved my life. I have lupus, I've had seizures, I've had brain damage. It wasn't until I started using cannabis myself, had never touched it as a teenager. I don't drink, I'm not a party animal, I'm a retired midwife with 3, adult children, very law-abiding citizen, and that saved my life. I went from 27 medications to 2. I have not had a seizure in 4 years. I am now able to be, I'm a widow, unfortunately, and I've had to raise my sons by myself for the last 8 years. Cannabis has made that possible in my life. So I would hate to see a restrictive town ordinance impact other people's ability to get safe and effective medicine. I would like to see people in the community not stigmatize it as much. And let's keep in mind, I voted against question 1. I'm not for recreational. I think cannabis is a medicine. I don't use it recreationally. I don't necessarily support it. But I'm not knocking anybody else's choice to do so. It's much safer than alcohol. But recreational is coming. In January, despite LePage's efforts to try to squash it, despite the recount that's going on right now, it's going to happen. That will legally allow every adult in the state of Maine, 21 and older, to grow 6 flowering plants, 6 vegetative plants, and an unlimited number of seedlings in their home per person over the age of 21. Cannabis is going to be in almost every single house in every neighborhood. That's just the reality of it. So I'd just like to put that out there. And add my own 2 cents to it. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer any. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Any questions?
Fern LaRochelle, Lisbon Falls. I'm not really an expert on the subject at all, but I've been actually paying attention to a lot of the planning board meetings and workshops, and I can honestly say that this is probably one of the biggest things I've actually invested time in over the last 6 months, more so than any planning of any construction project or anything, which is really kind of sad. And to be honest with you, I think if you told the planning board tomorrow just to drop it and not look at it again, they'd be more than happy to. And I think that's probably what would happen after this case. But at the last workshop, it was pretty interesting. A gentleman came in and was actually someone from outside of our town that actually chose Lisbon to be actually where he comes and does business. Actually a fairly large business on 196, actually not a small business. I mean, I'm not sure if he pays personal property tax on all his equipment and stuff. I don't really know how this is all taxed. But I think you got to be very careful with someone like Dennis, where if you have a code enforcement and you actually just have, to me, it should be regulated like any business. If you want to open a business downtown on Main Street, it needs to be a business that fits within that area. If you want to open a commercial, whatever you want to open it, right now the planning board can open up a book and say, this is where you can go. It either fits the guidelines or don't, and these are your guidelines. The downfall is if there's a business and the gentleman came in, sounded like a very professional person, sounded like he had a really, top-notch facility where no air goes out, no air comes in. It's all internal, and no one around knows what's going on, which is a great thing. But if you actually have someone that doesn't care about it, and actually on the other end of the spectrum, and they open up shop on 196 where, this gentleman was looking at the old Dags building, he said, man, that'd be a great facility. And it would be, I guess, for someone that needs the size and square footage. And if there's no regulations in our books and nothing Dennis can do, basically it's, you just open up shop wherever you want, and once there is a complaint, there's nothing the town ever can go back on and say you can't because this isn't where you fit. So you can either pick one or two routes. You either have some type of control where if you're having a commercial business, you run it in a commercial location, or you just say absolutely don't worry about it and you do whatever, and when someone comes to the town council yelling about something happening next to them, there's code enforcement and planning board's off the hook because it was that, they've spent not 5 or 10 hours, literally hundreds of hours on this, going to seminars, going to state programs, bringing lawyers in. Lisbon's probably invested serious money in just legal representation just to see which direction they're going. And like I say, I don't have a dog in the fight, but at the end of the day, if you actually just right now vote no on this, I guarantee this planning board, I can't guarantee it. I'd be honest to say the stuff that planning board has going on, this probably won't come back up, and basically it's just going to be free range because they won't have really no direction or any incentive to move forward because they've actually invested a lot of time. Discussion here is 10 to 15 minutes. I've seen 10 to 15 hours of discussion just to get to the point where they're at. So, just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Fran.
Anybody else?
I have a question. Would it be possible to follow up with the town lawyer and see the situation with the grandfathered status? I'd like to have a definitive answer of that, at least before the second reading if we do proceed this time. I think that'd be important to know. Also, I'd like to maybe ask the planning board about, have you guys thought about how this would interact with the home occupation ordinance for like the lower impact people that aren't doing a full, big distribution center but are, a caregiver operating out of their house, maybe that's more, fits in better with like rural areas than, some of the bigger operations.
Well, this is not a dispensary thing.
Right.
At all. And this was not intended to regulate in the home stuff that goes on. Not at all. That's why it was tried to word this way. But one of the thoughts that I had sitting there was the same thing you just said. It would be worthwhile to have an update from our town attorney pending that case that was resolved and what the rights of the town were established to be based on that law or that case. I think it might be.
Yeah.
Was it York?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Sanford has, they're kind of doing
That's a
their own
different
thing
they
too.
have a
That's a
dispensary
different.
then. But no, it was a case in York, and it was, I don't remember all the details, but it was pretty contentious for quite a while. And it was ruled in their favor, in the town's favor. And all they did in theirs was to regulate where you could do it. So, anyway.
So-
that's
But I
a
believe
thought.
that wasn't caregivers in general for medical. That was for dispensaries. I thought. No.
It was caregiver. And
So-
that's always been the question because the law is pretty fuzzy.
Oh, and that's what I'm saying. Without having any clear direction based off from what, the recreational, the recount, all that, that's a separate entity than
Right.
medical.
Right.
But when it comes to medical, technically they're not really required to even let us know. According to the state law, they're not required to let us.
That's your interpretation of the law, but that's not the interpretation of the law that's being done now by most of the lawyers. Again, we don't have more cases, but we have one case. That's all we have. And
We have one legal opinion out of York to be
Right.
able to base on.
well, it's
testing
more than
this.
a legal opinion. It's a
It's
the
case
same.
law.
Yes.
Case law now, based
yes,
on
that's
deciding.
the only case law. So yeah.
I guess I look at it and I'm just wondering. So, So if there's an ordinance that gets put on the books, and there's a business that comes along and says, I want to open up or do some business here, but the ordinance is restrictive and prevents me from doing that, what would we do as a council to go ahead and invite that new business in? How could we go ahead? What would we offer them to be able to get them?
You wouldn't restrict him.
It's food for thought. So what's to stop us? If we put this on the books, and the folks that are operating outside of the zones that we deem in this, or that this ordinance deems the place to be, what's the repercussion? What's the blowback on them? What's going to happen? What could happen? Well, what if they stay where they're at, though? What's going to happen? Are we saying that we're going to have law enforcement around and find these folks and say, if you're not in this area? Well, that's why I'm trying to, because this is what's going on. This is the thought. If I'm putting the shoe on the other foot here and saying, if I'm one of those folks and we pass this ordinance, then am I thinking that somebody's going to come rapping on my door and saying, you're not in a commercial zone? You need to either get there with your business or not. And I'm just looking at devil's advocate from that side of it. So if we do this, if we move forward on this, we don't have the resources now to enforce the laws that we have and the ordinances that we have on the books. I'm looking at that.
I think I would counter with that in that regard is the fact that anything that comes through the door with the fact that you've got a clear zone that you're directing to new resources. That's where the line has been drawn by what I'm reading.
And I think that's where I'm living too. Then anything new that comes in, but I think the folks that are already operating, what assurance do they have to know that they're okay where they're at? None.
Right. And I can tell you right now, I've talked to several of them, and they are not going to pack up and go to commercial or industrial. They're planning on it. They don't care if they're a violation of our ordinance because, in their opinion, state law trumps local municipalities, which is true. And as long as they're law-abiding citizens and abiding by the state statute, they have every intention to sit there and continue as they are doing. So if we were to put this ordinance into place and these people are saying, well, you know what, the state law says otherwise, I'm going to continue to do as I'm doing, we have no recourse.
We do. We have recourse, but I just think that's not.
Not if they're abiding by the state law.
It's not. I don't think it's something we want to dive into. I think that's really. I understand completely why the planning board put the amount of time and energy into it. I think we all have a pretty good. We want to make sure that the responsible businesses that would come in and do the right thing and maybe would be subtle in their approach because they want to conduct a business that's going to allow them to be unseen, if you will, if that's their business model. But some may not. Some may come with a neon sign and all the attention that comes along with that. And whether or not they are fantastic at what they do and they make a lot of money, it could, just by association, have a real bad stigma associated with that downtown and hurt the businesses that are already there. I think that's what we all can see that for what it's worth. So we're in a tough spot. How do we want to protect the folks that are already here and doing what they've been doing under the law, but we also want to make sure we're taking care of the folks who own businesses here.
The gentleman at the last workshop, which I was most uniquely interested in, was he had no bones about it. He says, I got a major shop on 196 right now, and he said, I'm already asking you here for, I want to be the first one in line for recreational permit. He says, because I already set up shop.
Right.
Basically, it's not, vote goes through. He said, so, I'm
That's
already
why he's there.
established. Exactly. He said, I'm already established as 196. He said, you have nothing in your books right now. I could be down in your village. You know what I mean? So he said, I did that on a strict courtesy for the town to be on 196 where he was. He said, and remember, this gentleman doesn't live in town. He picked that town because it was his place to set up shop. So again, it's just one of those things where I don't like regulating anything that we don't need to regulate. But, you need to give Dennis some tools so if someone does come in that wants to be a big commercial maybe player, you know what I mean, that he can actually say this is where you need to go. Maybe not, maybe.
Are we just basically trying to keep people off from downtown?
No, we try. Well,
sometimes that's what it sounds like.
Commercial and
But
industrial.
another thing, too, is
Commercial and industrial, yeah.
if you're talking
Not
about the
village, though.
recreational aspect, this is strictly saying medical.
Correct.
right.
So if there, like I said, there's two separate entities. So I don't think we should be regulating anything to do with medical. But if recreational does, if the recount does go through and it does say, yes, we're doing this, then maybe this would apply to recreational, in my opinion, but not when it comes to medical. Because, again, they're going to be separate entities. So if you're a medical caregiver and the recreational goes through, they can't just sell to me if I wanted to, if I knocked on their door. They're not going to be able to do that.
The way the planning board's looking at it, this is just like any other business. We regulate it to what zone it can be in and meet the state standards and be done with it. Just like you can't open, I don't know, can't think of examples, but there are certain businesses you can't open just anywhere you want to. You have to be in a commercial zone or or whatever. Village zone allows so much. All we said was don't put them in village, and we're not touching homes. So that's basically what it amounts to.
I know you do.
How close to schools?
No. A whole different thing. I am not an expert on this, but I do have some just questions. I did not read through every stitch of your information, so I'm going to claim a little ignorant on some of this stuff. But if the state statute is 5 people plus potentially the caregiver, and if there are 2 people, I don't have enough fingers, you use mine and Chris's, so we are husband and wife, but we each, I'm assuming, have to have our own certification for these 6 and those 6.
Mm-hmm.
So why doesn't the ordinance just say over 7?
I get that. And I'm pretty good with math.
Because if you're legally allowed to have this in your house,
Yeah.
anything over that, which would be the number 7 and above,
No, it's not.
that's what I'm saying.
You can have
That's what I was hearing.
you can have a husband and a wife who are caring for themselves, and if they're caregivers for other people, they can each have 5 more.
Right.
So you can have 12 patients under one roof.
Right, but
Their
each
fingers and toes.
certification.
We already covered that.
There's one certification for this, and there's one certification for that.
Mm-hmm.
So anything over that certification per person would need to be either in a commercial or industrial zone.
You can't.
You can't. Yeah.
Can't
Why?
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 because I can't have 7 patients.
Exactly.
Right, but that's you would be in
Wouldn't matter.
violation of
But
state law.
I'm saying, if I heard earlier a co-op of this cubicle, that cubicle, that cubicle, that cubicle, you could regulate that per se by saying 7.
Are you saying 7 caregivers or 7 patients?
Total.
Total.
That's what you're not getting.
7
Okay,
total.
so it would have to be
It's not allowable
12.
anyway.
It would have to be no more than 12.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. And if your 21-year-old son lived in the house and he had 5, you would potentially.
I do think you should be able, in my opinion, which doesn't count for anything, but you should be able to just limit that. I mean, I don't think that you should have 4 in the household, but to me, that is a absolute marked business. That's no longer a caregiver. That is a corporate entity,
Business
in my
model.
opinion. Model.
So says the state.
Which is why the state and all its wonderful existence
know.
hands down all kinds of issues. I don't know. I thought I had a magic button, but I guess
I just,
Thanks for trying,
I just
Tracy.
wanted to, if there's some confusion, we seem to be confused in, if you're in the same household, whatever, that is a footnote. It's there. And it says it is not addressed in this ordinance at all. So that particular situation is recognized as, that's fine. That this ordinance doesn't get in the way of that. So I just wanted to put that out there.
I think the issue here is that we have high-impact businesses that we're talking about, where if you had 4 or 5 different people operating in one facility, versus if you have kind of a low-impact business where it's a husband and wife and they're dealing with up to 12 people maximum. That's more like the home occupation business where it's it's pretty low impact on the neighborhood. You're not going to really be talking about parking lots filled with cars and people there. It's going to be one person at a time mostly. So I think that's where the issue comes up here.
Yeah.
We're trying to find out, not necessarily, ignore what the product is entirely, and just think, about the traffic flow and the, people that are going to be the use of the neighborhood is what we should really be thinking of it as. That's the angle I would think of it. Just think of it as it's, totally a different product, and, what is the appropriate business use of these neighborhoods.
Well, I can tell you that I know of a few that are in this town, and you wouldn't know.
There's more than a few.
As it's supposed to be.
Right.
More than
As
a few.
it's
Right.
supposed
Right,
to
but
be.
I'm just saying I personally know a few that you wouldn't even have any idea. You'd drive by and you'd have no clue.
Right, and that's why there's no real point in trying to regulate, those businesses where, you're dealing with a couple people and it's, pointless to chase around town. But unfortunately, the ordinance as I read it basically would say that it's not allowed at all, and there's going to be a conflict there. I mean, maybe Dennis won't go after the people, but somebody in the future could decide, I'm going to take that up and, start charging people.
I'm sorry, what did it say? It's not allowed?
It's the registered primary caregivers engaged in the cultivation for 2 to 5 registered patients are only allowed in commercial and industrial. So if somebody's out...
Except note 15.
Well, that's the confusing problem there.
Well, that's the reason it's there, is so that the people that qualify as same household aren't affected. Anyway,
Okay.
that's why that's there. But I support the idea that it might be a good idea to get another good reading from our attorney on what his take on it is. So, anyway.
Councilor Crawford, Kratz, how about you guys? Got anything?
Can I just add something as a suggestion? As the law stands now, 2 people that live in the same household can grow in the same location. I would suggest, if you're going to limit medical caregivers, that you say, if you don't live in the same house and you're not family members, then you need to go to commercial. If you're married, or you're, not in my situation because I'd kill my kids, but mother, son, something like that, then that may be allowed.
Maybe immediate family.
Immediate family have to prove that you live in the same residence. That follows along with the state law. Also protects neighborhoods. Now, having the neighborhood situation, I live in a neighborhood. I live in a fairly densely populated neighborhood. When I grow as a caregiver, I grow in a separate 2,800 square foot, 2-level house that was built by electricians. So, I'm sorry, my shop is separate from my house. I have a house and then I have a shop that's 2 levels. Both of the properties were built recently by electricians. So I have adequate electrical. None of my neighbors know what's going on. And when I do have patients, none of them come to my home. Nobody even knows where I live. Nobody even knows that I grow. Even the people that are part of the nonprofit that I run, they don't know that I'm a caregiver. They don't know I live in Lisbon Falls, because I like to keep that personal and private for my own safety and my family's security. So I just wanted to add that out there as a suggestion. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the only reason we're even having this discussion is because of the stigma, like you said, which is not to negate any hard work that you've all done, but it's rapidly disappearing, as we've seen from the vote here that they want to legalize it recreationally. But I think it should just be looked at as a regular business and nothing, with absolutely no stigma attached to it.
But if you look at it as a regular business, you have ordinances you have to...
Right, so
just
put
one
those
last thing
ordinances in as you would any other business.
Talking to Dennis on a regular basis to people, and he said one of the frustration that comes about is if you want to build a small garage at your home, and you got to get an electrical permit and a plumbing permit and stuff like that, there's a process that we go through where the electrician goes in and makes sure the circuits are all good. Dennis says, he's tripped upon a couple of these where people have come in and got permits to build houses or garages strictly for growing. He said, and there's this huge 400-watt system, amp system, and a lot of electrical going on. That's none of this is being actually even looked at, because actually the permits that they're pulling are not really for what they're actually doing. And he says he's really kind of stuck in a bind because as a code enforcement, if there's nothing written in the books about how it needs to be done or regulated as far as commercially and non-commercial, let's face it, if you're building a commercial structure to do a commercial business, you ought to be regulated as a commercial. If you're bringing in water from the town for commercial purposes, you ought to be taxed, and it should be all the proper stuff for that backflows and everything. But if it's not known and not protected, it's really hard for that to take place because it's really unknown. As a business, we get a backflow protector that, it's $500 to prevent any from chemicals going back in. I don't actually have water fertilizing anything. That's what they tell me. Well, if you have some fertilizer, I wash cars. I may put it in a soapy bucket. But, if there's nothing on the books for our code enforcement to actually permit or to look at, you got to understand that. But again, I think if you told Dennis and Planning Board to get rid of this, just don't go away, I think Dennis would say, easy, I don't have to. It won't be, the responsibility, the burden won't be upon me because there's no tools in this books to actually regulate what's safe and what's not. So, again, I think that's a concern.
Larry Fillmore from Lisbon. We've discussed this now for 30 minutes. And we ain't any closer to getting it resolved. I would recommend that we have a public hearing and open it up to the people, have the lawyer here, okay, and sit down with the residents and try to come to an understanding, because you have too many questions that remain open right now that we're not going to be able to resolve this evening. So why don't we table it, get everybody here, call a public hearing, okay? If they want to show up, they'll show up. If they don't show up, they ain't got anything to say to nobody on the decisions that you make. My 2 cents.
I agree with Larry on that.
Actually, it's 3 cents, because I'm worth it.
Do I owe you change? Give me a nickel? Where are you going with this, Larry? Actually, in protocol, first reading, does that result in a public hearing anyways?
It does.
So tabling it actually stalls the process, Larry, to your point. Anybody else got anything? I'm of the mindset we need to at least do something to give tools to our code enforcement officer. I am not going to open the dialogue to anything for what is done, or anybody that doesn't actually come forward, because those are the questions that actually can be sorted out the next time round. But it's clear, just looking at zones and looking at businesses that are coming forward now, not the other pieces, and I can't speak to that part of it. Anything else? I interrupted you.
No, I think this was a great discussion, honestly. I agree with Larry, continue, but I also disagree on the fact that I think we move forward is very enlightening. There was a lot of great, valuable information and opinions, too, so it's a good start. Yeah.
And I want to see the public hearing.
Yeah.
I'd like to bring that next discussion.
So yeah, I think the first, if we put the first reading on the books, it gets us to that public hearing and gets us to more dialogue with more folks in the community here, and opportunities for folks to come out who are participating in and or just want to have an opinion about, and then we can get a better gauge of where we are. But at least
Yes, sir.
we're moving.
The question was asked, it was just trying to stay out of downtown. No, this was modeled after wording that's in our current zoning, which we just added the line for the marijuana, but what it was fitting under was manufacturing, processing, assembly of products or goods. That was the area that most closely fit before we added its own title, and that area is restricted to commercial and industrial, so that's where that came from.
Makes sense.
Thank you.
Would we be able to get Dan here for the public hearing?
Check tomorrow, see if he's available to be here at the next meeting.
And
If he's not, maybe somebody else in his office.
yeah, and the
One-
other part for following up of York's case, how that impacts us, we could get that as well in preparation for that.
When would if we were to do this today, when would we be able to set the public hearing for?
Is it the-
14
it'll be the
days.
Next meeting.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Anything else? Roll call vote?
Counselor Albert?
Yes.
Counselor Crawford?
Yes.
Counselor Crafts?
Yes.
Counselor Ward?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Brunel?
Yes.
And Counselor Colby?
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
Order passed, first reading.
Thank you all. Next item 12.
Order 2016-262, another ordinance, adoption of GA maximums and appendices A through F.
And this is another first reading that will trigger the public hearing at the next meeting. This year, the general assistance maximums for the overall maximums and the housing have changed. And they're on page 34. Those are the only changes. So we need to adopt those amendments through an ordinance. So this will be the first reading, and then Judy Goddard will be here for the public hearing to answer any questions.
So what's changed? Just the
Persons in the household,
Okay.
the overall maximums.
Yeah.
So you see the first graph is for the current, and then the second graph is what they're gonna be changing to.
Okay.
And down at the bottom is what the rent is, housing rent, 2015, 16 to 16, 17. That's all that's changed. Nothing's changed in utilities, no change in fuel, no change in household supplies.
Okay.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Now for discussion. I have a question associated with this. It says that it's a yearly thing. Is this something that has come before us before? Because I don't remember.
It's been here once
Sporadic?
since I've been here, but it didn't happen last year, so I don't know that there were any changes last year.
Okay, so if we have no changes, we don't have to?
Right, exactly.
Okay, so
It's
it's
only
just
when
when things change.
Right.
That was what I wasn't clear. Okay. My other question is what's the purpose? If the state's setting the ceiling anyways, what are we doing?
We have to adopt it by ordinance, by law. I guess, what's your question? I guess I don't.
If they set the ceiling for us, why do we have to do anything? Is my question, I guess.
As we do by law, we have to,
We agree with their
adopt
ceiling?
We have to adopt their amounts through an ordinance. That's the
Okay, so we
statute.
could have, I guess the point that I'm making is that we could actually adopt it higher, but we're on the hook, is what he's trying to say by making it through the state. If he set the ceiling at a certain point, we could set our levels, but if it's not in compliance with theirs, they're going to cap out, and the rest is on the community.
Right.
All right, I was wondering, what's the goal of why they actually have us endorse this? That's what I was trying to get to. Okay, I'm good. That was just the two things that stood off the page. I go, why are we here? And I haven't seen it before.
I had that same reaction several years ago.
Alan, the red tape don't get on the spool all by itself.
Yeah, because we're such fans of red tape, Norm.
We are, aren't we?
Roll call.
Roll call, please.
Counselor Kobe?
Yes.
Counselor Brunel?
Yes.
Counselor Lund?
Yes.
Counselor Ward?
Yes.
Counselor Crafts?
Yes.
Counselor Crawford?
Yes.
And Counselor Albert?
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
Next item, please.
Order 2016-263, an ordinance, establishment of the Lisbon Development Committee. This is a second reading. A roll call vote is required.
Roll call is required?
Yes.
Okay.
Ordinances.
Tis what it is.
You guys might want these.
Yeah.
I need a motion.
Another one down this way.
We do, okay. Motion to begin the discussion.
I'll make the motion. Sorry, I'm snapping over here.
Okay, second? Anyone?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All right, discussion. I looked at this, and I don't know if it was too late at night or if there's just too much pages here associated with that. Between the bylaws in the establishment, I see inconsistencies that need to be ironed out. And in some sections, I'm not real clear what the intent of member status versus associate member for. I know the model is trying to actually go after the planning board, but what I've just handed the council up here is when we can pull it from our charter for a page and a half, why are we doing it in like 7 or 8 for one committee? It seems to have gotten a little wordy to me. And I don't know if that's my reaction. Anybody else got anything associated with that? Because I can dive right into topics, but what's jumping off the page when you're seeing it? First,
Don't you highlight it?
I got it all marked up, Chris, so follow along, sir. If I'm not misreading this, the fact is the intent is 7 full members, 4 associates. Difference between the bylaws and the section 257 on page 38. The bylaws state that full members have to be residents, and they are the only ones that are actually eligible to be chair and co-chair, vice chair. And what I would actually say is that whatever language is in the bylaws should be consistent with what we're reading here, just so you don't have to leave it to interpretation. I'll just keep going. I guess what the question, what is, if it's modeled after the planning board, what is the point of distinction between a full member and a associate member? Is it just because a full member has to be a resident? Is that what you were going for?
I mean, just, and I know this, there was a lot of work that went into this, and I can't
Right.
tell you every detail. One of the things we were trying to pull through this committee was, right now, to serve on any committee in Lisbon Falls, you actually have to be a legal resident.
Right.
What we're trying to pull in is people that actually run businesses in town, large businesses, pay plenty of taxes, that actually have
Vested interest.
would have vested interests that would like to serve on a committee, but in the past have now had an opportunity. Right now, pretty much no committee that we have in Lisbon that if you own, McDonald's, or if you own, Napa, or if you own Frosted
Okay,
Donuts, you actually
from
basically
afar.
have no say on anything that's happening around you. This would actually at least have an opportunity to sit at the table, be associate member. May not actually be able to vote on the dollars, but actually be able to say. That was, and unfortunately, there's no, I know Don worked pretty hard on this, there's really no simple way of sometimes jumping over that little bridge.
Yep.
If there's inconsistencies, I mean, that's something that, I'm not as familiar with as probably you are.
Yeah, I was
know,
just,
yeah.
I know what the intention was to get to this point. This is a committee that I actually believe in that regard, because the model coming after the 196 to actually say, okay, we can accomplish more, and in that regard. But it seems like we got a little too wordsmithy and lost what the intent was in the words, if you will. I'll just, in that, the associates actually are full voting members. I mean, that is clear in there. And then
They
the
can't, they
LDs
can't be the chair or the vice chair, correct?
right, that's the only distinction, is
Right.
they can't have that piece. The 2-258, point number C, the ALDC may obtain goods and services necessary to its proper function within the limits of appropriations for the purpose. What are they purchasing? That's what I don't get.
Coffee and donuts.
But what would they?
So that is in the planning board as well, too, Don? Okay, that's why I was asking. So it's just the same boilerplate. Okay. The 259 on page 39, the LDC shall elect the chair and vice chair among its regular members and create and fill as the needs arise. The term of the officers shall be 1 year for eligibility for election. The LDC shall appoint a secretary from its membership unless staff. One of the key things that actually goes through the three sections that reference staff between the bylaws and this point here is we bounce from staff being our economic development director in one section to another section talking about if we can actually hire a secretary or staff for it to, if not, then the committee will appoint their own. I think it just should be clear one way and stick through.
Okay, here's what you should do.
Sure.
You should take the bylaws and put them in the corner somewhere.
Thank
The
you.
bylaws are written by the
you.
the authority of the committee itself. Every committee is supposed to write its own bylaws.
Okay.
So the idea was to do the committee. A lot of the wordsmithing in here was done by our town attorney because it was different before until he made his changes in the thing. And we went along with it. The bylaws were mostly changed, and they may have some errors in them or inconsistencies. When you talked about the staff, we weren't at all sure that we could get paid staff to be a secretary. So what we decided was we'd put it in there if it's available, and whoever the staff member that is designated. That's pretty much the way it is in the planning board's bylaws. And if we couldn't get a staff member to do it, then one of us would do it.
Okay. So if I'm hearing you correct then, Dawn, from the packet, page 41 out, the fact is if we're looking at it tonight for this purpose for the reading, is judge it based on that, not the consistency with the bylaws that muddied the water.
Right. This was intended to go to you as a courtesy that you could
Yeah,
make
yeah.
suggestions to us to change it.
Yeah, and
forever.
that's kind of, so most of what I say, the inconsistencies were good, so just judge it on that is where I was going next. All right. There's also a point here where vacancies being filled by town council, not on recommendation from you folks. Is that the intention? Is that the way that plays itself out? The reason I ask is I also read another section, you guys actually picked your own, because if we don't act on it, it becomes something that you can put into play after 30 days, and I'm clearly not
No,
comfortable
that's the
with that language.
bylaws. That's the bylaws.
I'm clearly
Oh,
not
that's
comfortable
okay.
with that.
That's just the bylaws,
Okay,
which is the same way as it was for the planning board.
right.
Basically, what happened there is we sent it up to the council. Council ignored them, and we passed them.
Yeah, no,
So
it's,
that
I
was
get,
the
I
idea.
get that. I get that. It's a backup clause for actually
Yeah,
non-activity
yeah.
by the sitting here. Yes.
So that's that. But what was the other question? I forgot.
Filling of vacancies.
Oh, that's
Based on
town-
recommend, you
No,
can recommend, but
it's-
we appoint.
It's the same as every other committee. It's the town council that gets the privilege of doing that. The manner in which you do it, upon recommendations or whatever, that's up to you guys.
Right.
But it is that's what's supposed to happen.
You answered most of my questions when we just actually take out anything associated with the bylaws, because that's the working rules for you guys. Appreciate that. What I didn't want to do in actually venting out this is take what is intended to actually move this forward to be able to accomplish more and actually drive it down when the fact is now it's about the wordsmith. So, thank you. Yes, sir.
The major part of that is to get council represented on it.
Agreed.
So that we have council back here, sitting here, saying this is what the committee did. So that you have good communications from it all the time. And to involve other citizens who may own businesses but not be residents of the town otherwise.
And the liaison is a voting member. I read that in your, exactly. So your committee actually has 12, so your quorum would actually be 7?
4, yeah.
I'm asking because the fact, does it matter if associates are counted in that, or do we, of the 7 full members, do we have to have 4 to be able to have a quorum? So. Okay, but for an actual vote, you have to have 7.
4.
4.
Quorum is 4.
Quorum is 4.
Quorum.
Even though, regardless of the size of the committee, I believe 4 is the quorum regardless.
From the, we're counting it based on the full members is why that, okay, the distinction matters, so that's why I
Yeah.
was asking the question. Again, having read the whole thing last night and you compare the two, there's inconsistencies. It was, what the hell did I read this and why am I still reading it at 11:30 at night? So, yes, I actually thought you were in Hawaii this week, sir, so that's why I didn't actually ask you this before this meeting tonight. So, I have no other questions. If anybody else.
So I just want to get a little bit clearer on this to make sure that, so bylaws out the window, we're just going to go ahead and talk about it as on its face then, right?
Right. I mean, vibe to get to this point is the fact is they can do more with the rebranding for the name to be able to do it. And the intent is to model it after the planning board, so the liaison structure with the council is strong. Correct. Right.
Fantastic.
All right. All in favor?
You have to have a,
Oh,
have to
we-
have a roll call.
Roll call. That's a roll call. She said that too.
Yep.
All right.
First day,
It's your first day on the job. We'll cut you
So
some slack.
somebody really should have had the dissenting vote. Larry's watching.
All right, so you ready?
Yes.
Counselor Ward,
Yes.
Counselor Lunt,
Yes.
Counselor Brunel,
Yes.
Counselor Colby,
Yes.
Counselor Crafts,
Yes.
Counselor Crawford,
Yes.
and Counselor Albert.
Yes.
We have 7 yeas, 0 nays. Order passed.
Next item, Twyla.
Order 2016-264, Lisbon Development Committee bylaws. I take it you don't want to take a motion.
No.
I'd rather not. I'd like to have them iron that out and we'll deal with it later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just move this to a future agenda.
Please.
Please.
Please. That gives them the time.
Okay, no objections. Next item is Order 2016-265, designate council members to sign municipal payroll and school payroll warrants.
This is something we do annually, and we're allowed to by statute for treasurer's disbursement warrants for municipal employee wages and benefits and state fees, and then a separate policy for school employee wages and benefits. And you have the authority, or the chair has the authority to delegate any member of the council, more than one member of the council, and only have one person sign those warrants instead of the majority. So these two policies are a little bit different, and what I've done is, my suggestion is that the chair designates every single member of the council. That way, if the majority is not available, at least I can pick from any one of you to come in and sign the payroll warrants. Sometimes by only designating 2 or 3, it becomes a problem for us if everybody's out. So my suggestion is to designate everybody on the council so all of you are able to sign these payroll warrants.
That's how we've been operating, right?
No, it's only been 3.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is a change.
Why did
It'll
I
make it
think-
easier for us.
Okay.
Like today.
Yeah.
Now, the only one we can't do anything about is we still need to have the majority on the school.
But, yes,
Right.
state statute
School,
dictates
that
that.
dictates that they have to have the majority on their end and then one of our signatures?
Only one of our signatures, one counselor to sign off, yes.
Okay, so,
Just on the wages and benefits. You still have to have a majority to sign off on their accounts payable.
okay, so we still need the 4 on
You still
wage
need
payable.
the 4 on accounts payable, but just one signature on the school payroll and benefits, and municipal payroll and benefits, and municipal state fees, just one.
I need a motion.
I'll make it.
I'll second.
So is this motion, I'm a little confused. The motion is to designate any one of all of the town council members to sign warrants.
Yes.
To sign just employees' wages and benefits and state fees for municipal employees and school employee wages and benefits.
And anything that takes the pressure off being able to do it is a good thing. It's been a pain in the butt. We've all gotten the calls to be able to make that majority, so if we can make it as less painful as possible, I'm all for it. All in favor?
7-0, order passed.
Next item, 12.
Order 2016-265A, the loader bid award.
Good evening.
You doing, Ryan?
I was hoping I wasn't going to come back and talk about this again, but my estimates were a little low. We received bids today and opened them, and based on our review of the bids that we received along with the specifications that we put out, the case loader offered from Beauregard Equipment is the unit we feel meets the specifications that we put out there and will meet the needs that we have from the public works standpoint. We did rush to try to get this out, so there was one area where there was some confusion, and that's where in respect to the old loader that we're getting rid of and the value of the tires that are on that old loader. The case dealer, Beauregard, had come in and looked at the loader as it sat and thought they were getting that loader with the better tires, and our intention was to keep the better tires to put on the loader that'll be used at the transfer station and then ship the old one down the road with some spares that we can't seem to get rid of. They're in the shed anyway. After we discussed that, he indicated that his trade-in value would be decreased by $4,000, which then increases the total price to $167,725. And that gets us a new loader, all the plow gear, an extended warranty, which provides us with 5 years, 6,000 hours of basically full factory warranty. Case adds also a 3-year, 3,000-mile maintenance warranty where they take care of all the maintenance in the book, basically for the first 3 years of 3,000 miles. And then you get 3 years, 3,000 miles of, best I can compare it to would be OnStar, where they monitor the equipment so we can get some feedback. I put in the bid spec that they had 60 days to provide the new piece of equipment, which they indicated they'd be able to. And I also put in the bid that they needed to supply us with a machine basically of equal size as a unit for us to use while we wait for the new one to arrive, which is nice. They've got one ready to ship up from Concord that we'll have to basically fill the void until the new one comes in. So apologize, my numbers weren't more accurate 2 weeks ago or whenever it was, but based on the bids that we got, and pretty happy with where we are at this point. So looking for permission to purchase the case at $167,725 amount.
Now, the John Deere, that was out because it's undersized.
The John Deere, and I don't know, how do I put this tactfully?
Don't.
I asked for a John Deere 544. The dealer said that he was going to bid a 540, that he was going to bid a 524 because in his opinion that was what was comparable to the rest of the units that we had specified. I told him that was fine, but he needed to bid both because in our mind the 544 was
what we were looking for,
was what we wanted, and he didn't do that.
Okay.
And that was the biggest thing. And the machine doesn't meet the horsepower requirements that we put in there. I mean, the arguments would be that if you have the full turn and you have a load, it has a higher weight rating for tipping over and whatnot, but it's got a lower breakaway force rating from lifting, when you're digging out of a pile or whatnot. I mean, the unit that we're getting rid of is a 621 case that was purchased in '99 for Public Works. Okay. And then that one,
it clearly was not what you expect.
Nope.
In the story.
Nope.
Volvo. That was based on our feedback for brands that we were looking at last time, or how does that one come out?
The Volvo was higher. What's the question?
We're looking at 167 for the case. Is that what?
Yep.
Versus the 152 on the Volvos.
I'm looking at all the way over to the right. And the Volvo was 185.
Good, done deal. Good, done deal.
Okay.
Need a motion?
Your motion could also authorize the town manager and finance director to seek financing.
For a 3-year term like we talked about?
Yes.
Can
we will do that with the chair.
What was the financing options again? Were we looking at 3 years and
max of 3 is what we talked about.
Yeah.
Lydia brought to us.
So what are we looking at for payments based off from that? Like with interest and all that?
160. It was somewhere in the neighborhood of $60,000 a year, so we'd have to go up.
It was originally 150.
Right.
Yeah, it was close to 50,000, wasn't it?
Yeah, her estimate was somewhere between 50 and 60, so we may be 60 to 70 now for 3 years. But clearly, what we heard in the last vote is when you use the true sense of bond, the community is not in favor of doing something over a 7-year term, which costs us more money over that term. And that's where the 3-year comes in, because you can't come up with $170,000 out of the gate. But in that regard, we're at least cushioning, because over that was like $6-8 grand that she was talking about for total financing costs.
I think this is a good. I think this is a good bridge to get us to the point where we actually have a capital improvements that plans for the replacement of this type of equipment. But 3-year makes a whole lot more sense than bonding for a whole lot longer than that.
Mm-hmm. I'll make the motion.
That's what I need to hear.
I'll second.
Anybody else got anything before?
And just for clarification, this is something you need right now for winter plowing, correct?
Which is why
absolutely.
Yeah. So that's why you had to come back right away and put it on this meeting. It's something that can't wait.
No, and it was
it's because of the price.
No, I mean originally we were authorized to 150.
Right.
The price was higher than I'd hoped, quite honestly, and so that's why I'm back again.
So we didn't have authorization to proceed with the bids.
Right. All in favor?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Next item, 12.
Under other business, town manager's report.
I just have one thing. It's kind of funny. It's from my vacation in Aruba.
Lost baggage?
You'll know what this is, Karen. The Aruba Today. You've seen those? Well, I was there.
Try not to gloat.
what date this was, but anyway, while I was there, I ended up turning to page, what page it is. And it Monday, the 28th, okay? It has a story, and it's Sabattis, Maine. Loons, lager, ducks, and draft, birders, brewers, form flock. Do you remember that in the Sun Journal? Well, it made it to the Aruba Times. Do you believe that? Pass that around so you can see that. That's the chances, being down there in a little paper. And just the only other thing that I thought was kind of interesting, they had a happiness index
Wrong side of the
study,
bridge.
which identifies Aruba as the happiest island in the world.
So if you're looking for a place to vacation, they say that Aruba's a place to be.
Karen will agree. That's all I have. I just thought that was kind of funny.
I almost texted you when you left and said you went for the sunny weather and warm weather and you left us with crap.
Came back to the crowd.
I know.
Right?
Next item, please.
Under other business, the Northeast Economic Developers Association Board of Directors nomination.
You can tell Orion was up here last. I'm Tracy Stuber, Economic and Community Development Director. Good evening and welcome to our new counselors on board. As you know in your packets, there was a letter that was sent to me from the Northeastern Economic Development Associations, which is, acronym for that is NEDA. And they have approached and actually are asking for me to be the main board of directors. NEDA is part of 11 states, including the District of Columbia. They have one representative from Maine, and they sought me out. I didn't seek them out. Basically, the requirements of serving as a board member, you need to attend 4 of the board meetings annually. One of them happens to be the conference, which I usually put in my budget to attend anyways. And depending on the location of these meetings, because they're out of state, we'd be looking at $2,500 to $3,000 within my budget. I currently have the funds in my budget to allow me to attend these meetings. I'm very frugal and I watch my budget very carefully. The benefits of this organization would be for professional development, learning opportunities, and networking with economic development organizations from the 11 states plus the District of Columbia. Travel is usually their board meetings are on Fridays, so the travel day for me would be Thursdays because we don't work Fridays anyway, so it would be just Thursday meeting on, except for the conference. So their meeting going in 2017 would be March, which is Albany or Saratoga area. The June will be in Massachusetts, probably around the Bridgewater State University, again, if it's close enough to travel within vehicle. October is the conference, which would be a 2-night stay, and that's in Providence. And the December one would be in New Jersey. I've been a member of this organization since 2006. They're a great group, and they are full of a lot of knowledge in regards to professionals in their fields. This gives us the opportunity to make that connection outside of the state of Maine and what's going on in other communities in economic development. Again, they sought me out. Come from a community of 9,000 people when they could have gone to any of the other members that belong to that organization from the state of Maine, and they approached me. So I'm asking for council's blessing in regards if you feel it's appropriate for me to participate and be part of this board of directors.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
Second that.
Anybody have any reservations? I think she's done a good job, in my opinion, of giving the advantages to the community for networking. She's already got it in her budget. Anything else that you guys would say?
Any questions you?
Seems like a good opportunity to network with other people and maybe get some contacts for bringing in business that might not have ever heard of the Lisbon or the area that we
Exactly. And I do that everywhere I go. So
How long's the appointment?
it's a 3-year term. Mm-hmm. The last one from Maine served on it, I guess. I think he was probably on it about 6 years or so. He kind of ran out his terms. And he was from an agency. He wasn't even from a municipality, so this will be the first, as far as in a while, that somebody coming from a municipality to be part of the board.
As the manager, what's your opinion?
I think this is going to be great for Lisbon, really, to go to 11 states and network. You never know what contacts you're going to make, and it's just going to get Lisbon out there even more.
All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
7-0.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Go, Tracy.
Next item, 12.
Goal setting.
I circulated this when the packet went out to you guys, so just, again, what I've come up with for items from discussion amongst some of us sitting here and some of us actually out in the community. What I would like to do, and you guys read it there, is that I think it's in our best interest to actually just have goals for what we would like to accomplish in the coming year to be able to keep us on task with that. I use the model. I think one of our highlights last year that we did is set a strong goal for the bridge with the planning board. We can target some of the discussions, say the fact is the priorities and difference of opinions on some of the topics, but at least we had a clear goal of what we wanted them to accomplish for the coming year. It got me thinking that maybe we ought to look at it from our perspective as well, too. So got the catch-all here, and I'd just air it to you guys, what you guys would like to actually see happen in the coming year. And I will be candid to my listening public out there. The fact is, it's not rocket science on the topic that's here, but I'm actually putting it to these folks here to not have actually thrown out with the bathwater if something doesn't come out to the place. The fact is, it was just a discussion on my part, not something to actually bind anybody for me expressing an opinion. You know, the first thing that on the list, if improved communication between the town departments and committees. We did a great job mending fences, is the way I look at things with the school department, but there's definitely room for improvement on that model that can be applied to the various departments and committees. Again, we did a good job last year of assigning people to liaisons to the various committees. I can't actively say that in all cases that we actually got information back from some of those committees to know what their priorities are. And the list goes on. We did a town manager's review last year, but I think we could actually set specific goals to be able to measure performance, to apply that not only to one department head, if you will, but all the various departments. We have a new police chief that's actually coming into the community. We're at that cusp now. I'd like to be able to hear what Chief Hagan has to say associated with staffing within the police department and the comm center, Larry. I'm not going to settle to one view on that or not, but I think we should look at our plan entirely to what is the cost to actually go our own way and what is the benefit if we actually choose to go in a direction that goes with the county or LA 911. We have options. I'd like to hear from the guy that's in charge of it to hear what his view is. You know, the capital improvement plan, you guys have heard me beat that horse throughout most of last year. We did great strides establishing it. You know, the former chair coming up with $100,000 to be able to have seed money using the model that I look at with the fire department. I think that it's beneficial to have budgeting that is a little more flat instead of actually riding the highs and the lows when the needs come up, and the first thing that goes is the capital items. It's not effective planning, in my opinion. I look at the loader discussion with Ryan sitting there, so it shouldn't have been a three-sided transaction to put a piece of equipment over $100,000 on the roads of the town of Lisbon. It's a disservice to our community because it's not the best approach. You know, heard it clear with the charter changes. You know, they approved the 250,000. They don't want bonding. The fact is, okay, they want something similar to us too. They want what we actually can do as the need arises, rather than reacting to what the need is when it's already crapped out and sitting at the solid waste facility. You know, moving down, Finance Committee. Topic associated with that is the conversion to Munis. The fact is, could we have drawn in resources to be able to compare that before it was actually something that was here? Most definitely. Could we actually, use that model for getting insight from somebody outside of this group to actually be better informed? I think so. Does it have to come back in the form in the way that it actually was in the prior Finance Committee? Most likely not. But in that regard, just to actually take it out of the charter for whatever reasons we're actually at that point in time, I think to say that the 7 of us can be the best informed without inside, not always the best approach. Charter change, that's the commission discussion that we had the workshop. You guys are sitting there associated with that. Are we going to move on the topic or any of that? Town disaster recovery plan. I know there was 3 of us that went through this training last year with an eye-opener associated with Joanne Potvin in looking at our plans. Hearing Lisa Ward, she's got a lot of good ideas associated with that as our new EMA director. I think it's time to dust off the topics, especially for, you're going to tie it back to a discussion associated with the comm center. What's the exposure to actually having one SRO removed from our police force, potentially looking at changing the dispatch locally, and what is our entire disaster recovery plan when we have a goal to actually look at putting a topic of generator, all of those discussions, just like to actually give it some effort. As I mentioned, the dispatch service. The other topics that are there, address the auditing, MDOT findings, and improvement of operations, finance assistance with the Munis software implementation, a town-wide compensation review. I think we got to stop being the training ground for other communities, and we actually should look at what our pay is and keep staff that we would like to have so we actually can take their benefit instead of sending it on the road. Sewer rate, that's Ryan's. The fact is he gave us all a book that's this thick associated with that. To have one rate for everybody when we have commercial businesses and that type of stuff, I think we need to look at what that content of that document is and start fragmenting this to break it down. Lisbon's comprehensive plan. It's come up for discussion associated with that several times with the planning board. I think we need to give it its proper due. I mean, if hearing the planning board's assessment associated with that, I mean, I'm not even going to get in. I'm going to leave the Route 9 discussion at the fact is my intent associated with this has nothing to do with that topic. It is a topic that needs to be looked at. I am not going to say one way or the other on my view of it because it would actually taint the process of what I expect that the planning board would bring before us. Let them do their effort, put the resource to it, because if I've heard them correctly, they're looking at 18 months before that actually would come back to us anyways. Give the process its due time. The medical marijuana, we heard it tonight. It was a 30-minute discussion associated with that. I think we just scratched the surface. What do we want to focus on? Anybody have any ideas associated? And this is just one list. If anybody's got anything else, I'd love to hear it. So by all means, way I've expressed to anybody that's been willing to talk to me on this, or I've had a chance to get, I know what I'm thinking coming into this, but I need to know what you're thinking.
Well, I have a suggestion, and I don't know what the process would be about changing the working rules of the meetings, because I like what we've been doing in the past year where we've been allowing people to come up as they have questions or comments. And I'd like to see more of that instead of having, audience participation and then later on response to new items. I think we need an open dialogue with everybody involved. and I like how that's been working. And we've been voluntarily allowing people to come up as they raise their hand, and I just think that that works best for us. So let's just continue and just change the working rules.
Yeah, I sent you a copy of the whole entire set, right?
Yeah,
So
I don't
think-
remember.
Did I?
Emailed
Yes.
all of us.
yes, you did.
Right,
And an
so
email.
if you want to tweak those, then bring it back for a council vote.
Okay.
That's what you ought to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Transparency and open communication, it's been something that we continue to build on that. I know that there's been some discussion bantered around with more public access. I know we've done public workshops before, and we usually do them somewhere in that Monday through Friday vein. But that doesn't work for everybody. No, not everybody works in that kind of schedule. I know this is kind of crazy to think about, and I don't even know if it's something we can entertain. I'd love to see us look at a Saturday and actually explore it. That's something that, if we're going to put out something for public forum or public consumption, let's try to put it on a weekend day where we can actually go ahead and see if we can get more bang for the buck, get more people to come out, because it's tough when you work a 10-hour day. You got kids on, you're running around both sides. By the time they get fed, one of the moms and dads has to stay home if you're lucky enough to have a mom and a dad in that parent group. Could just be a single mom or a single dad, and they can't get out. So we want to be able to try to
Reach
be,
everybody.
we can still do one during the week to allow those folks that have that ability to get here. But let's see if maybe when we get to some of these bigger issues, let's get on a Saturday. I mean, we're all vested. I got no problem. We can try to find times that make sense, whether it's an afternoon or a morning. I don't know how it would work, but we can talk about it. I just think it goes to getting more people involved.
Another thing, like, I know when the planning board has sent out, like, the whatever is Go Monkey, whatever, the survey.
Oh,
Yeah, Survey
Go
Monkey.
Monkey.
Thank you, Go Monkey. Where am I going? So what I would like to do is, like, not put suggestions where you have to rank or choose, but I'd like to see where the community wants us to focus. Certain aspects that they would like to see us address or whatnot. And maybe put the question in there, and then they can type in their suggestions or rank certain things that what they want us to do, so that way we get a little bit more input as well on some possible goals.
We could probably come up with some type of a questionnaire for you to review with different scenarios.
I kind of like to leave it like so that way they can write in their suggestions versus us saying, would you like to see us focus on this, or this? Like, I want to hear from.
And make it simple, not a real long survey.
Right. Just.
If we want people to do it, we'll make it simple.
Right. And just leave it so that way that they're giving us their opinion and their answer versus us saying fill in the bubble of which one you want us to look at.
We have a real good opportunity right now at the start of this, not really start of this year, but the middle of this fiscal year. But we can get our ducks in a row right now, so that this time next year, when we're talking about it, we can take a look back and really measure how we've done. But I think we have to put these goals into perspective, and prioritize, and then start tackling them. Because we can spend a lot of time tilting at all of these, because they're all very valid. But let's look at the ones that we can actually make some headway on, and get some things moving in the right direction.
Just in, the 2.5 years that I've been here in Lisbon, there's been some significant changes. There's a lot that's happening in this town, a lot of good things that are happening. And I hear people say that all the time, that Lisbon's changing for the better. A lot of good things are happening, so we want to actually capitalize on that.
For sure.
One thing that I think we need to work on also is the accessibility of these meetings, especially in terms of viewability on the web, because right now, if you look at it there, the meetings are not posted from recent, it's like the last one I saw was October, so it's, hard if you can't make it to the meeting.
They're on there.
Okay, well, it's, last time I looked, I couldn't find them.
Well,
so.
we, for the Meet the Candidates.
Right, it was not on there.
No, well, my husband and I did a live feed as well, which I would like to see more of that.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's not why you're here, but
Meet the candidates were there.
We can talk
Yeah,
about
it's-
technology.
It's all right.
Watched it right in his office.
We reached out just to find out what some other places were doing, and I think Diane actually sent an article about Bangor, and the company's called Town Hall Streams. They provide the camera and the equipment to do everything. They can't live stream on Facebook right now, but they can live stream pretty much anywhere else, and they can provide the digital download that we can then, I believe, I haven't gotten the details on how we'd get that to Great Falls, because I'm assuming we can't eliminate the TV aspect of the broadcast, but it would be available. I should have brought it with me, but I think it's $250 a month. He provides all the equipment. He keeps all the information, stores it for 5 years. It's available on demand, I think immediately after the meeting's over. But basically, there's a couple options. The simpler setups that he does, it's a matter of, it's web-based, so you type in the schedule of your meeting. It starts recording at 7 o'clock, regardless of if we're live or not. So it's going to pick up whatever is being discussed on the microphones immediately. Or you can have it set up where there'd be a switch, where it would be similar to what Twyla's doing right now. But we would be able to avoid, we could most likely eliminate all the equipment that we have here. Not get rid of it, but just not use it. And it would be something that's mounted up higher so it gets a better field of view. But it would take the audio feed would still come from the microphone setup that we have right now. To me, $250 a month, and he provides everything. I mean, we're paying $6,000 a year right now to Great Falls for the service that they provide us, and we're doing all the legwork here and creating the DVD and then giving it to them. I mean, to me, that would be, again, trying to figure out how to integrate it with that. I mean, I was hoping, when I originally looked at it, I was thinking, well, then we can do away with that contract and save all kinds of money, but I think it's going to be
in tandem,
in addition to. But there is that option, and he keeps bugging me. But when we want to get started, and I told him that with new council, we were going to discuss it at an upcoming meeting. But to me, it seems like a really, really good way to get that aspect of it where it would then be live. Put the link on our website, wherever else you wanted to put the link. People could get the live meeting, and then they can go watch it on demand for up to 5 years. So pretty simple. I mean, I think the guy's sitting on a gold mine.
$3,000, not $6,000.
Well, but you're still going to have to pay the $6,000 though to keep, because you're still going to want to air the meetings on
TV.
On
What if we don't?
Time Warner, I assume.
If we don't.
If you don't, right?
Yeah, but then those that don't have, the elderly don't have computers.
I'm just, all I said was,
Then
what
it
if we
doesn't
don't?
make
I
sense
didn't say we,
spend
I
$9,000
didn't say, we're still
Not
doing it
saving
right
any
now.
money.
Everything's nothing's changed, but I'm saying, what if we don't?
I would rather just, I mean, I don't want to spend any more money, but if it means that we can reach the max amount of people, then.
To me, it's the benefit of the
$3,000 to help maybe the library buy some more computers so the elderly can go there and watch the meeting if they wanted to as well.
But if it's bad weather,
I
or if they
understand.
can't leave.
I understand. Just putting it up
benefit,
there.
as far as I'm concerned with that, is that it's all backed up in the cloud. I mean, if you like the cloud or not, whatever, but it's all going to be in the cloud eventually. I mean, it's all backed up in the cloud. We don't have to deal with it here. We don't take something off Twyla's plate. I mean, it's
we don't know if
quite a few benefits.
administratively that Great Falls might be able to work with this feed to actually.
I think they, and who knows, Great Falls may want to be a little bit more friendly with their contract rate if we're just asking them to.
Or work with in tandem what we're discussing.
And that's because I mean, my original discussion was with Great Falls. How do we get Facebook Live or whatever? How do we go that direction? And they said, look elsewhere, basically. I mean, they weren't rude about it. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying
something
it's
we can't do.
It's not their wheelhouse.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean,
Fair.
it's we have a
Have further
proposal. We
discussion
can.
about if you're going to take one, get rid of the other, because to me, having both of them isn't going to make any sense, because today, if you don't have a computer in your house, it's because you don't want one.
Well, and
They're
that's
cheap.
that's one of those surveys comes in great. Try to find out how many people are actually using the television feed. Because if we're having like 5 people watch it, but the majority have said that they will go and click the live feed. that would
Tracy has
be-
a question.
that would-
Or comment.
I will say that if ours is not aired when it's supposed to, I hear about it from the elderly community. I think there's more of them that the TV network serves, and with the technology, and trust me, I'm all about technology. It makes my life easier. But I think for the purpose of broadcast, for those who are not going to go looking for that, you need to keep it on the television, unfortunately. You can share those links from Great Falls on Facebook, on your websites, so you can serve that purpose already. But that, I know I hear about it when they're not aired at a proper time.
Thank you.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Just to add to Tracy's comment, because I've worked with Great Falls, they're very limited. So if you decided that you didn't want to do that anymore, you wouldn't get that time back. So that's something to think about.
Larry?
Larry Fillmore from Lisbon. I've made this comment several times before, in that we have at least 3 blog sites in this town. We have all kinds of social media that we could be using. We don't take advantage of it. Okay? And I have no idea what happened, but around the time, 3 months ago, Twyla, it was that the feeds that we put up on the website could not be shared for us to put on the blog sites. Always before, when they came out, I just copied it over there
I think
and
you still
put
have
it
to
out
just
there.
call them because they are available. I can download them.
Okay, but I know they're there. I can see them. I can watch them myself.
Maybe you just need to call
But I
them.
can't share them
Should be able to.
for the blog site. Now, Don said this before, and other people have said this. I think it was you, Don. I'm going to give you credit for it anyway. That
You should be concerned.
we should be using these sites, okay, because they're free. Oh man, that's cost effective when it's free. So we reach a lot of people between the 3 websites, the blog sites, and we get out to a lot of people. So if we can get whatever decision you guys make on who you want to go with, please make sure that we can share them and download them to put out on the websites. Okay? Now, can I discuss that list that I didn't get a copy of?
Sure.
Okay.
Do you want a copy of that?
I always want a copy. You know that, Chris.
There you go, just like that. Somebody hand it to him.
Okay? I've been fighting this for about 3 years now. The comm center. I think it should be moved to the top of your list, and I'm going to explain why. If you people decide to go with a 911 system through either LA 911, Androscoggin County, I don't really care what PSP that you use.
As I understand it from Chief Hagan, we can actually go anywhere.
You
Yes,
can even go to
that's true.
Saginaw County. You don't have
You
to
can
go
go to
Mandeville.
Topsom,
Correct.
okay? You can go wherever. I really don't care. I'm not promoting any PSAP. But what I am promoting is the fact that the 911 operators need to have the capabilities to dispatch our first responders when they receive the call, not pass it on to so many people. But the importance of doing it first is what's critical. I've talked to Androscoggin County because that's where we were going before and we had a discussion. They need at least 6 months to integrate Lisbon into their system. 6 months. That puts it pretty close to 30 June. That means, and I'm going to use the council's figures because I know it's bigger, that the council would have $190,000 more, okay, in their budget. Now, to me, $190,000 is not chump change. Okay? I think that we could be more effective if we took advantage of the cost savings that we haven't taken in 3 years. Okay? And by doing it the first part of January or as quick as you can decide where you're going to go, we might be able at the end of this budget season, have some money for projects. And I think that we could use that money very effectively. But if we don't get started, we're going to lose out again. And another $190,000 is going to go bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
2 key points while you're walking away, Mr. Mann.
You know I'm walking away.
I know you are, but I know you're listening, so I appreciate that too, Larry. That is a what's that? Well, one point that I make associated with that, Larry, that's a list from myself. Do not actually attribute any of that to anything more than the council. The other piece that I would actually express in that is, I would repeat, I am not expressing one way or the other that it is not a direct line to anything associated with dispatch. That is a discussion to actually say what's our cost to stay? What's our advantage if we decide to stay? I'm not in position to be able to make that. What I believe we have is we have a chief that actually has got a different set of eyes, a fresh perspective, that'd be able to at least discuss what he sees and have it be heard. That's all I'm saying. So to actually draw the line to say that it's about $190,000 missed opportunity, that's just a number, and I don't believe the damn thing. I want to revisit fresh for the dialogue in general.
Yeah, I think. And
that $190,000 was provided to the community by the town council. Okay?
Agreed.
The councilor said that.
And I sat here the night of the workshop, and I watched that meeting die associated with the room full of public servants that actually in the public safety, and I do not want that to be what actually comes out of entertaining this thought, which is why at this point, if it's taken me 3 months to put that list together, it's 3 months of actually putting it in your hand to be crucified on what's a video log.
yeah, the last time this happened, Larry, as I'm sure you remember, we tried to pull. The council tried to pull the block and go downhill, gangbusters, towards getting this done. And it was at the outcry of all the emergency personnel in this community that made it very clear that we were running too fast towards this goal. I don't think that we want to make that same mistake again. I think it's a good idea to involve the heads of all those departments.
Agreed.
And have them come through and give us their professional opinion on taking a look at what we have right now, what the other places that we might be investigating to go and partner with have to offer, and how we could partner with them and how it would work to our best interest. And see if we get apples to apples. And if we do, and everybody, and the safety piece of it, because that's the most important thing to me. Yeah, money's important, don't get me wrong, but the safety aspect of this, and you made a very valid point earlier. I won't drill down on it, but it takes longer for us to get emergency response. Then we have to investigate that and determine, well, is that the best we can do? And if it isn't, what can we do better? And then we have to look at cost after that. Because safety is always going to be paramount. Cost is secondary to that, every time.
I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but I will also say that this community does not have a history of actually saying that it's always about the cost. We have a documented history of paying more to go our own way, whether it be our water infrastructure, whether it be our communication center, whether it be a variety of different tasks. We have routinely buried our head in the sands and actually gone our own way, and the expectation that you can do it cheaper is ludicrous. That's, yes, loosely interpreted, I would agree with you, but in that, the fact there's the pressure associated with the back formula for the way that the school funding works in, that's the juggling that our school committee has to come up with a budget to keep us afloat. It's what we've learned over the last year is let the school committee actually do their budgeting and continue to actually support our business partners. All right. I know
Good
I'm
dialogue,
I'm
though,
getting
Larry.
off. I'm getting off task here. What I would like to see is this is just a list for myself. I'd like to know what you guys are seeing, so the next meeting maybe we could get together and just put an outline of what we intend to do, and start putting some of those things in. If they die right here on this page, that's fine.
Can we do like a goals like workshop versus having it at a council meeting?
Probably be a little more constructive.
I think
Yeah.
you're right. And get that on the books sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I would have no issue with that.
I'd like to do it before the. How long? Yeah, I was gonna say before the New Year.
Before the holiday? Yeah.
No, not before the
Whoa.
holiday. Yeah. Nothing's impossible. Nothing.
We can explore dates, but I think
I will tell you in that regard, the reason this is actually sitting here tonight, we have a great vibe from what we actually started last year. I like the fact that it has been demonstrated that 7 people, difference of opinions, but one common goal to move forward. The fact is, I think we can just take what we created last year and continue it with formalizing some goals. That was where this came from. What do you have to say, sir? I know I speak too much. I know Norm does, and I know Cassie's not afraid. But I want to give you the thought too, please. And I'm going right here down the line.
Are you asking me specifically about?
What are your goals for sitting here? There's a reason you're a new person sitting on this committee.
Yeah, because of
What
just
do-
about
why-
everything on this paper.
But what if it's not on the paper? What is important to you? I want to hear from you.
Ordinances. I think that there's overbearing on the people of this town. And I'd like to review some and try to get rid of some.
Do you have a hot list?
Well, off the top of my head, because I promised it to my son that I'd try.
Mine is chickens with my wife.
Chickens? Yeah.
Chickens are one of them.
They are one of them. One of them was fireworks.
Okay.
If you listen closely, you can hear a collective hallelujah from a lot of people in the audience.
Okay, but the answer to the question, yes. I know I put you under the fire, but looking at ordinances, we heard that from Diane brought it up in the reply as well too. So you agree with that? So
absolutely,
They need to be
put it on the list by all means.
Oh, I think
There's some
we need to review every
inconsistencies.
one of them for the most part and just see what we need to tweak or possibly remove or.
Fee schedules. That's the same thing.
Yeah, we'll do that.
It's an ordinance, so
In
by all
February.
means, keep going. Anything else?
Not right this
I
second.
don't. Okay. How about you?
Well, one point that I had was the charter change we talked about. I think we should have a workshop with the town attorney, because we have a lot of questions about that, and there's a lot of ideas, and things are all over the place. I think we need to be able to just sit down with, our council and the town attorney and say, what's feasible, what's legal under the, state law, and what would the effects of these things be. If you open the door of a charter commission, what does that, cause to happen? Are there smaller changes you could make that don't open that door?
And I think
I don't think we get to a charter. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
No,
jump
no,
over.
I was gonna defer to you
Yeah,
anyways.
I don't think we get to a charter commission until we have that workshop, Mark, because I think that there's been a couple of things that have drove those conversations. I spoke with our town attorney on a couple of them, and we were
We've had a
lucky enough
workshop with
to have that discussion and realize that we had at least 2 things that would require more than just some slight changes to amend. And so that would require that charter change. So I think there may be more, and I think we have to dig in and determine what that might be. If we have a good laundry list, then it's worth talking about commission, because there's money. There's a cost associated with that.
expensive and time-consuming.
And very much you have to get folks that want to get involved and be a part of that. And
Also part of this list associated with this is we don't always have a solid understanding of what's in our charter to know when we're not complying with the charter. The effect is, you're going to open it up, you open it up for everything.
Yes.
Right, and if one of the things on here is the school budget, I think if we're gonna do any type of charter changes, anybody that it impacts needs to be part of this discussion and the workshop as well. It shouldn't just be us and the attorney. It should be, if it's gonna be something to do with the school, then the school needs to be able to be here, and so doesn't their attorney.
those partners are going to be the ones that help
We
us
can't
make it
we
easier.
can't do everything siloed.
Right, but that's what
We
I'm saying
can't-
is
it's silent.
we need
Agreed.
to do it as a cohesive unit, not just this is the town council and their attorney, the town's attorney going at it.
One thing to take away from the charter, if we are going to suggest anything other than it's currently there, the opinion from Dan Stockford at that point is it would require a charter commission because you were turning it away from the town council here in assigning that responsibility in another manner. That will require a charter change.
To jump on something you just brought up, that's that silo mentality that's been in this community for a long time, especially in, we need to change that. We need to change it for good. We're better together as partners than we are living in our own little worlds and saying, that blowback doesn't affect me because I live here and not there. That's got to change.
And I know I'm throwing Larry to the fire here. I'm not pulling one topic on the up in the list in that regard if it is actually going against communication, because I don't care what the topic is. In communication in this community can be improved. That's always going to be my number one, because it covers all the different topics to be able to move us forward. Anything else, sir?
I think that's it for now.
You know, I'm coming to you.
Yeah. No.
What are you seeing? What are your priorities?
I think the workshop should happen every year, and I think is important. There's a lot here, and especially the medical marijuana with it passing in November. That's important, and I think too that it's a different industry and it's a whole new game. But there's also a lot of models that we have here in the town and in other towns that we can look at that are good models to help us dictate where we're going to go or what we're going to do with the ordinance and whatnot. So there's a lot of good stuff here, but I think the workshop's going to be important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Chris?
3 months to come up with this list. There's a lot of valid things on this list. There's no doubt about it. Again, as Larry said, and I'm not just jumping on Larry, but dispatch has been, we've talked about it for the last couple of years. Everybody here cares about caring. But when you talk about the kind of money that's there and what we could save by going somewhere else, I mean, I'm not talking about putting it on top of the list, but I've had discussion with several people about it that, I mean, again, when you talk about it, we had 25 seats here and you had 15 or 20 people here show up, and this town's got 9,000 people in it. I mean, it's hard, as we said, because everybody works, mom, dad, jobs. I mean, if you're going to have some, again, that would be one of them discussions where I think you would put it on a Saturday.
Right.
For
This is
sure.
This
And
impacts.
give enough notification out there on the bulletin, on the Teletron, or whatever, so that enough people knew that this place may not be big enough. You know what I mean? You'd have to find a place a little bigger that would sit us all. Because again, I'm about open communication, and I think that more people should get involved, so that some of these things, as you said, there's just 7 of us and 10 of you in the audience trying to dick out what we're going to do here. Again, you know, this list is double that big. This is just what you thought of in the last 3 months. You know, there's all kinds of other stuff on top of that. But yes, these priority things. Again, if you don't get them, as you said, a punch list. This is Alan's. Alan just got on the seat tonight. He's already got us a punch list. Go, Alan. You know.
That list comes from the prior chair. You know
Yes,
that.
I know.
And
The fact is, by all means, the work has already been done. It's just keeping it moving forward and putting some formality to it.
But I agree with you when you say this needs to be, it impacts everybody in this community, whether you're a newborn or you're
90 years old.
90, exactly. And it needs to be so that way everybody has the ability to put their input and how it impacts them, which I think that leads me to the survey part. I'd like to send out a survey specifically on that as well to see where, if it's something that's important to you, then you're going to reach out and you're going to do it. So whether you're against it or for it or whatever, you're going to put your 2 cents in. And I think that would be a good start to give us an idea of where we need to head as well.
Sure.
Very good first meeting.
So what's our next action plan? I don't like sitting in meetings.
So I'm looking at
We don't move forward.
Schedule a workshop.
I'm looking at the calendar. I'm already ahead of you. I'm looking at January 5. I mean, I don't think it's realistic for December, but we can. I'm looking at next year's. Yeah. See, Twyla's on it. She's got us these 2017s up here already.
January 5?
Yeah,
January
I'm
5,
looking at
Thursday.
everybody's good with that. January 5, Thursday. So
Time.
we would meet on
7?
Tuesday. Just put it all in the same week. Why not?
Well,
7?
January 5th
Fine.
is a Thursday.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Okay.
That's what we
that
want,
doesn't
I think.
impact you guys, does
Because
it?
our
Okay.
first meeting is going to be the 3rd, that Tuesday.
Right.
So we would meet on Tuesday,
Yeah, I
standard
heard that
session,
blowback
and then
too. We'll try to do
So-
better with that.
So do you want us to try to come up with some of the things on this sheet to discuss? Because you're not going to want to discuss it all.
No, by all
No.
means. in that regard.
no.
So,
I think you should stick with one topic at a One topic.
workshop.
Right, one topic, one
So
workshop.
what's our goal for January 5?
Let me,
Yes.
can I offer a suggestion?
Yep.
Since we're going to be starting budget right off,
Right.
I think your capital improvement plan should be on there. You mentioned you wanted to do a town-wide employee compensation review. That should get underway as well. Because all, those may
The
or
money?
may not impact the budget, depending on, what happens.
Are we biting off too much to actually hear Ryan on topics associated with the sewer? Because that's also going to be
We were
budget.
gonna do that with Alver Associates, right? The sewer rate study?
Yes.
And we were gonna do that in January.
Well, that was going to be, I didn't know if it was appropriate to
Yep.
throw my 2 cents.
You sure can.
But
I'll
the
give you a
goal,
quarter.
I was wondering if the department heads should be involved with that as well, just based on, listening to what's rattling around with everyone. I'll speak for myself. I'm looking for guidance and direction as well from this council based on, number one, the projects that we already know are coming down the pike, and then what we received for funding approval at the last vote in November for other roads, just in general. And then we've got to talk about sewer, we've got to talk about Chris's favorite subject, stormwater, and there's some annual training that we need to do there that we wanted to do at a workshop as well. So, that's, I don't know when it all fits in. And then when it comes to equipment purchases, paving, and some of those projects, I'm going to hit you guys hard at the beginning of the budget to commit, so we've got to start getting stuff out to bid
Yep.
way earlier.
Yep.
We're still waiting for the new truck to get fitted and back from Viking, and, if we had put the thing out to bid, had the truck delivered in April, we would have been way ahead of the game. So, this is what it is, but based on the budgeting schedule and the way it's always worked in the past, where the budget's approved, sometimes not till the end of June, that really puts us behind the 8 ball for the next year, unless we're going to be leapfrogging a year behind, if you will. I don't know if that.
No, wait, I would actually hear this out. Anybody that's had a chance to talk to me, how do I know what your priority is to make it my priority? The fact is, it needs to get here, but where it's not going to be able to assist you. Now, that's the way I'd explain it. How do we get on the more radar? We can do stuff with the liaisons, but in the department heads, the fact is, I need to know what your goals are to be able to help you here.
Yeah, it's from the top down. I think if we're going to set goals here, then we got to count on Diane's going to help us set those goals. Then, of course, those goals don't live in a vacuum. They have to go out to the department heads and say, this is where we're trying to, push the rock uphill. We need your support to do it. And you got to tell us, these are pie in the sky. We can say what we want to say, but if you're saying, well, here's the real fires that we're dealing with. This is the stuff that's coming down the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months that are the real issues. So we could be focused on this stuff, but you could bring some things to this list that
aren't even on the list.
Exactly.
Right.
And there's nothing that says you can't and shouldn't. We absolutely want that input. We need to prioritize. We need to make this work.
Can we do the workshop based off from anything, have the department heads here, but anything that's budgetary, because that's going to be knocking pretty soon. So,
Right.
Whether it be anything that's related on the list or future lists
Right, and I
that's
think-
budget related,
Exactly.
I think we need to at least do an avenue, sit down, have a cohesive conversation, and then figure out, prioritize after that meeting.
I think that would be good, especially with the department heads here, because I've had discussions with some of them already and what they want to put in the budget, what they're looking at, and I think it really ought to start in a workshop to see if you're going to sanction it, or if you want us to put it in there, rather than us put it in there and then you have us take it out. I think it would be a good idea if we could at least get some consensus.
Put something out there for a start.
And you even might get some answers on the dispatch, that night from the new chief, because I know he's been, asking some questions and has had some dialogue with the sheriff's department. So I think we could have the department heads in there and work on the capital improvement plan, work on budgetary items, figure out if you want to do that townwide employee compensation review and how we're going to do that, if we'll contract with somebody, because that really needs to get started, if that's what you're going to do.
One of the things that's also out there, too, from a free resource, would be the MMA's salary survey is out there to at least know where we're at. I know in your case associated with the one that was live, We know what the comparables are because we know what other communities are actually bringing to the discussion, so we know if we're not consistent or not. What can we do for free before we have to look it out there to be able to address it, to see what are the inequities? What are we missing for opportunities? Because, again, you're right, it's coming into the budget. It's going to be that package. I need to know what you're thinking so that the best be able to help you. So by all means, I'd love to have CIP, the sewer study, if we can do anything with that. Compensation, department heads. Is 7 o'clock too lofty a goal?
Can we
do it earlier?
I was going to say, can we do it on a Tuesday instead? Tuesdays.
So if we pushed it out, it'd be Tuesday the 10th, because where we meet the 3rd in January. So then the following Tuesday would be the 10th.
Right.
So we could look at that. At this point, January's wide open. The 3rd and the 17th, we're obviously meeting. But then after that, we can do Tuesdays, Thursdays, Wednesdays, anywhere along the line there. I think there's plenty of stuff here for workshops and then some. So.
Yeah, because
Yep.
I need to be meeting with my department heads in January to start the budget.
Yeah.
In order to make the March deadline.
So I then, rather than try to force this into one workshop and really not get where we want to be, I think we should talk about multiple workshops with a focus. So let's use the offline tool and email to kind of start to whittle down if we can. And of course, department heads will bring stuff to your attention. You can bring it to ours. Well, maybe try to put this
Actually,
together.
work that through channel so they go through her and then out.
That's exactly, that's
Yeah.
exactly what, that's what I'm saying. They're going to bring it up to her, and then
Right.
she'll bring it to us on top of this list we have. Well, let's start whittling it away. We don't need to do that in a workshop. Let's come to the workshop with the topics ready to rock and roll.
Right.
Let's not come there and try to whittle that's just a waste of a workshop. Let's
So
try
you
to do
wanna
this
schedule
offline.
more than one workshop,
I think that's a good idea.
so that we know?
If we're having our council meeting the 3rd and the 17th? So what if we did the 10th, the 24th, and the 31st as workshops?
I love the idea. And we can always back off one if we don't need that last one.
Right.
Or-
You'll need more than them.
I think we will. I think we'll end up using the Thursdays too, you want to be honest, but that's fine by me. I don't care.
Or we
They're
could
they're
go
on-
into
they're on the
February
calendar,
every
we move it
Tuesday
forward
and
from
make it
there.
here.
Hey, no.
Ryan, you're
let's-
working overtime.
So do you want it at 7 or at 6, or when do you want to
Let's try to push it earlier in the evening if we can do it
Six-
to make accommodate department heads.
Six works for me.
It's a long enough day.
Yeah.
I can make I might be coming in on 2 wheels around the corner from work, but I'll get here.
We'll make the exception for you.
Chief, you didn't hear that.
So the 10th, we have an agenda roughly out there. The 24th and 31st, we'll set at the 10th, we'll set the 24th agenda.
Yep.
Thank you. Anything else?
So do you want us to set the agenda for the 10th?
Yeah, in that,
Start
I've
it.
heard budgetary associates, CIP, sewer, compensation,
Yeah,
and
that's-
department heads.
Yep.
Anything else anybody wants to wrap into that umbrella? Yeah, you're further away. I can't hear you now.
You're talking to me?
So,
Oh,
can't-
I can hear
so
you
now you
fine.
can't see me or hear me.
It's a rough world I live in.
All that next?
Next item, please.
Counselor Communications.
I think we've communicated.
Yeah, that's right. No, short and sweet to the point. We're going to, what's that?
County.
Audience participation for new
Well,
items.
there's nothing really much because, we had the meeting with the attorney
Larry
Yep.
spoke.
for the county lawsuit. At that meeting, it pretty much came down to, we don't think that the judge is going to give us an answer. They've been sitting on it for a couple months now on the briefs, and then the very next day, they came down with a decision, and it wasn't really in anybody's favor, but it just pretty much found that county commissioners did do wrong, but they're not going to be held accountable. But we are revisiting with the attorney in a couple weeks to figure out what our next approach may be. So that's where
Gonna
we're
give
at.
them a pardon?
It wasn't us who. It was the judge in one breath said they were wrong, and then in the next kind of turned a blind eye, in my opinion.
Nobody's going to be awarded judgment.
Right.
Are
Let's
you
just-
or Cassie going to that next meeting?
One of us will be.
Okay, good.
One of us will be, yes.
I have a conference call at 5:30 that
It's on both of our calendars. It's one of us.
Can
will
both
be
of us go? I don't see why
Absolutely.
not.
It's, yeah, absolutely. It's just at least one of us will be there.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Hard pressed going through the county budget part in this, it's kind of deflating because it doesn't go one way or the other, and I'm really not sure if there is a next action. So, there's a certain point in time where you just have to move on, and I'm not sure if that's going to be the popular view to express, but I think that's the one that's prudent in this case from our perspective. But more to be known a couple of weeks from now. Anybody else?
Yeah, I got school committee stuff. I went to one of their meetings, the last one they had, and the good news there is I'm really liking what I'm hearing there. And what I mean by that is that Mr. Green is working hard with his department heads. He's set clear objectives with them to let them know that, hey, here's what my expectations are as far as budget goes, and it's not the traditional, which the general consensus normally with any budget from any municipality and or school is that they pad their budgets so that they can get what they need. And he's made it pretty clear that you come in exactly where you're at, not pie in the sky, or not that they ever liked that before. But he was very clear when communicating with the school committee what he's passing down to his department heads and the directives that he's giving. And it's very promising. It's encouraging to hear the school committee and Mr. Green getting together and really working with the department heads to come up with something that's going to be meaningful right out of the gate. So that's good news. It was promising. I just wanted to report that up to you guys, where we're at. We're still early, very early, but I heard some good talk about creative ways, thinking outside of the box, specifically in relation to SRO, and at least starting to run down that road and say, hey, that's one of the things we'd like to at least figure out how could we get a police presence back here. If, best possible case scenario would be getting the SRO back. But if we can't, how do we, get creative with that? So they're working hard already to try to think outside the box for the upcoming budget season. So I think that's kind of a challenge for us to do the same. So that's it.
Last thing I would ask is maybe for the next agenda, we had liaisons identified with the last seated council. I would ask that if you guys have an interest in any of the various committees to actually get those out to Diane, she'll communicate with all of us. That way we get all of the committees actually covered to be able to effectively begin that liaison communication. I'd like to give everybody that opportunity to sit on whatever. We just heard it with the new committee tonight. We need a presence there. We need a presence with the planning board. So by all means, if we could get that done sooner than later, we can get that out to type them in for this communication issue as well.
Volunteer, you will be voluntold.
No, I don't believe in the voluntold. I'm still doing time for that, and too many times with scouting, because the unwritten scout rule is that you are free manual labor. So the voluntold really doesn't set well with some of the scouts. Next item.
All right, I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have any more audience participation
Oh,
for new
please.
items.
Thank you.
We did start with some of those.
Absolutely.
Okay. On behalf, I guess, of the new Lisbon Development Committee, Community Development Committee, on your calendars, December 15th. It would be 6 o'clock here. We are going to, we're inviting the public to come in. As you know, we have our CDBG, our Community Development Block Grant, Downtown Revitalization, and we are finalizing our plans. So what we want to be able to do is invite all the folks in and kind of give them an overview on what we're looking to do, how we're moving forward, answer questions. We will have staff on hand, as well as the committee members will be here, as well as our engineer, Alvar Associates, will be here as well. Within that, the committee will come back before council in January, and we will present to you the finalized plan, catch up the new folks that may not have a lot of background in it as far as the project. And our goal is to go for our bids, get everything out there. Again, the construction, if we want to do construction in the springtime and we want to get in on those bids for better price, and we really want to have everything in hand and be ready to go out for bid for the spring. So, again, if you're available, you're welcome to come.
Anything else? Anything else from audience participation for response? Seeing nothing. Next item.
All right, and the council communications, were you all finished with those?
I think there's plenty.
Anything? We're next is your adjournment. Order
Make that.
2016.
I'll second.
Favor?
All in favor? Tonight's not the night,
Motion
Cassie.
passed, 7-0. Stand adjourned. Turn the camera.
Just feel the momentum.
Oh, thanks.
Brand new, man.
Sure.
All righty.
Don't get sucked into the wave. That's just all I